The Mets take 2 out of 3 against the Los Angeles Angels. It was truly a series win that this team desperately needed. I have thoughts, opinions, and a lot more coming up right after the intro.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Bleed Orange and Blue podcast. My name is TJ Labby, and this is the Mets series recap review versus the Los Angeles Angels. But I wanted to talk about something today that recently happened. You're probably noticing I'm wearing a New York Yankees hat. So before I get into what happened, I'm gonna tell a story real quickly. So I've been a sports fan since I was like 18 months old. I grew into loving baseball at around 3 years old, 4 years old, somewhere around there. I was too young to realize, having like free will to have like a team that you can root for. So at the time when I was young, I decided to root for the Yankees because that's my dad's team. My whole side of my dad's family are Yankees fans. So I was a Yankees fan for a good amount of time from like, I think it might have been from, well, yeah, I'm not sure because I became a Mets fan in 2010. I'm not 100% sure if that's really true or not. I think that is true. So I was a Yankee fan for maybe give or take because I was Derek Jeter for kindergarten, like something like that for Halloween. I was like 3 or 4. So about maybe 3 or 4 years. So around 06 all the way to 09 when they won the World Series. So yeah, around that time. So you're probably thinking, what relevance does that make? Well, when I was 10, I decided I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and I remember looking up like so many broadcasters around the sport and all that stuff, and falling in love with the voice, Gary Cohen, the voice of the Mets, and Howie Rose, the radio voice of the Mets. But also the man that unfortunately passed away at the age of 87 today, John Sterling. He was the legendary play-by-play radio guy for the New York Yankees. And one of my heroes, to be frankly honest with you. Like when I was a Yankee fan at the young age, I remember listening to some of those radio broadcasts. I remember the Yes Network. I remember all that sort of stuff, like, listening to Michael Kay, and then, also listening to John Sterling on the radio as well. And also, listening to John Sterling when we weren't able to listen to Mets radio when the Mets played the Yankees in the Subway Series. I think it was around the year 2017, 2018. So waking up today, hearing that Sterling unfortunately passed away due to heart failure, which he had several issues with heart failure apparently going on, and it was not the greatest of times. He retired in 2024, and you could hear it when you listen to those last calls that he made in the win that the Yankees got in the 2024 World Series, that his voice was fading away, and it was not good and did not seem to get any better. But doing some of the research for this today, I mean, even though a lot of, just a lot of people say that like a lot of his calls were like over the top and too much to handle. Like the home run calls they had for a bunch of the players, like Bernie Williams, Giancarlo Stanton, Derek Jeter, Curtis Granderson, Mark Teixeira, all those guys. I mean Brett Gardner, all those guys that uh, played with the Yankees for a significant amount of their careers. But not only that, I mean, also, his famous win call, the Yankees win, is one of the best calls in baseball history. Of course, the "it is high, is far, it is gone," which I've used countless amount of times before to talk about broadcasters. I have used John Sterling in a bunch of my presentations talking about broadcasting. Um, so I was very disheartened to hear that he unfortunately passed away today because, even though I'm a Mets fan, diehard Mets fan, I always respected John Sterling, and I always respected what he did in the radio booth for the Yankees. He was the illustrator and narrator to Yankee fans' childhoods, from the 5 World Series wins that he got to call in the 90s, and including the Subway Series, a World Series win against the Mets. But also he brought the joy and fun of baseball in every single call that he made. And I hope it's not overlooked of how much of a legacy he has. I mean, even I didn't know today that apparently he did a lot of stuff in the NHL and a lot of stuff in the NBA before he even became the head radio guy for the New York Yankees. So that was pretty cool to find out. I mean, I felt the same. I felt the same way when Vince Scully passed away. The one of the greatest voices of baseball ever, and to lose another GOAT in sports broadcasting, it hurts. It's saddening, and it sucks even more considering the story I heard that he tried so hard to make it to the summer to walk his daughter down the aisle, and now unfortunately he's not able to do that. Like I don't like that hurt me the most because it's like that's what every father dreams of, walking their little girl down the aisle as they get married. So and I know a lot of Mets fans are probably thinking, why are you really mentioning anything about this? Because, well, even if he was the broadcaster for the Yankees, which of course I'm not a fan of the Yankees anymore, he was still one of the voices that made me want to do this profession that I'm trying to get into, that I'm working so hard to get into. And I will always remember what Sterling has done for the great game of baseball and what he's done for Yankee fans around the world. And he will be truly missed. And thank you, John Sterling, for what you did for baseball. And I hope you rest easy in heaven with Vince Scully and Bob Murphy and Lindsey Nelson and all those great broadcasters. And I hope the pain finally subsides and you're calling great games up in the clouds.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
So, as mentioned, New York Mets win 2 out of 3 against the Los Angeles Angels is a big win that they desperately needed, and a big win to finally get them back on track. It was not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. Very aggravating at times. Very frustrating at times, but you know, they're finally able to get it done. Thank goodness. That's all you really need to do. Now we just need to build up some more consistency. So let's break down these games. Game one, the Mets won this game 4-3. Huascar Brazaban would get the win. He would go up to 2-0 with a 1.26 ERA. The loss would go to Jose Fermin for the Angels. He would fall to 0-1 with a 2.45 ERA, and Devin Williams would pick up the save, improving to a 7.20 ERA. It would be his third save of the season. The final line score of this game, the Mets 4 runs, 7 hits, 1 error. The Angels 3 runs on just 3 hits. So the pitching was on top of their game in this one, that's for sure. Christian Scott, he went 5 innings, gave up 3 hits, 2 earned runs, had 8 strikeouts, also gave up a home run. He looked a lot better than his start against the Twins, and hopefully we're going to see a lot more of that coming from Scott. Now that he's going to be a reliable arm, well, hopefully a reliable arm in this rotation. Huascar Brazuban, he would pitch an inning and strike out the batter. Brooks Raley pitch an inning, he would strike out the batter. Luke Weaver would pitch an inning, he would strike out 2 batters, and then Devin Williams would pitch an inning and strike out 2 batters. The Mets would actually retire the last 21 batters after the 3rd inning, which was very impressive from this Mets pitching staff. The hitting, Bichette 2 for 4 with a run scored and a strikeout. Juan Soto 1 for 3 with a run scored, a walk, and a strikeout. MJ Melendez 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Austin Slater pinch hitting would go 1 for 2 with a strikeout. Francisco Alvarez 1 for 4 with a run scored and an RBI and a strikeout. Brett Beatty 0 for 2 with 2 walks and a strikeout. Marcus Semien 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Carson Bench 0 for 4. Tyrone Taylor 0 for 3 with a walk. And then Ronnie Mauricio 1 for 3 with a run scored and an RBI. The Mets would strike out 6 times in this game and would go 2 for 7 runners in scoring position, leaving 4 runners left on base. The scoring in this game, Angels got off to a hot start. They would be up 2-0 after a Jorge Soler 2-run home run, made it 2-0 Angels in the bottom of the first. Then they would score again off a throwing error by Francisco Alvarez as Zach Neto was able to he stole third base. Then an errant throw into left field would be able to get Neto home to make it 3-0 Angels after the bottom of the third. But then the Mets would make their comeback in the top of the 6th. Francisco Alvarez with an RBI single made it 3-1, and then Marcus Semien with a 2-run RBI single made it tied up at 3 in the 6th inning. But then in the 7th, the Mets would take the lead off a Ronnie Mauricio solo home run, his first of the season, making it 4-3 Mets, and that was all she wrote as the Mets would take Game 1 by a final score of 4-3, a big comeback victory for the Mets. In Game 2, the Mets would lose 4-3 in extra innings, snapping a 7-game losing streak for the Angels. This is a game that will be talked about for a while, but it was definitely not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. Ryan Zefferjon would get the win for the Angels. He would improve to 2-1 with a 1.91 ERA, and Austin Warren, unfortunately, would be slapped with the loss. He is now decreased to 0-1 with a 2.08 ERA. The final line in this game, Mets 3 runs on 9 hits, no errors. Angels 4 runs, 12 hits on 1 error. Nolan McLean got the start in this one. He went 4 innings, giving up 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He was not at his sharpest in this game, unfortunately. Tobias Myers went 2 2/3, giving up 3 hits and a walk. Huascar Braziban 1 1/3 with a strikeout. Craig Kimbrell 1 inning pitched, gave up a hit, a walk, and a strikeout. And then Austin Warren, unfortunately, coming up in the 10th inning, went 2/3 of an inning, almost got out of it, giving up 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk. And that would be all she wrote for the pitching. As for the hitting, they had a very, very rough night. Bo Bichette, 1 for 5 with an RBI and a strikeout. Juan Soto, 1 for 4 with a walk and 2 strikeouts. Francisco Alvarez, 1 for 5 with a strikeout. Mark Vientos, 1 for 4 with a run scored and 2 strikeouts. Marcus Semien, 1 for 4 with a run scored and a strikeout. Andy Ibanez, 0 for 2 with an RBI and a strikeout. It would be his first game since being signed with the Mets. Carson Bench would pinch hit for him. He'd go 0 for 1 with a strikeout. Tyrone Taylor, 1 for 4 with an RBI and a strikeout. Austin Slater, 2 for 3 with a run scored. MJ Melendez would pinch hit for him. He would go 0 for 1. Ronnie Mauricio, 1 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. And then Brett Beatty apparently is in here too, but he did not have a recorded at bat. He probably came in as a defensive change, or he did come in as a defensive change for Ronnie Mauricio. The Mets would go 4 for 9 with runners in scoring position and leave 7 runners left on base. The scoring would start off Joe Adele with an RBI single, would make it 1-0 Angels, which actually shouldn't have made it 1-0 Angels if Carlos Mendoza decided to challenge the play from Jorge Soler being out on the throw from Austin Slater at third, because Jorge Soler was actually tagged out at third before Nolan Schanuel actually stepped on home plate to score. Unfortunately, a miscalculation by Mendoza, not being able to challenge it, so it would be 1-0 Angels in the bottom of the first. Then Bo Bichette with an RBI single would tie things up at 1 in the top of the third. In the bottom of the fourth, Vaughn Grisham with a 2-run RBI single made it 3-1 Angels. In the top of the seventh, the Mets would start a comeback yet again. Sacrifice fly by Andy Ibanez made it 3-2, and then Tyrone Taylor tied it up at 3 with an RBI single. But folks, that's not all, as there was a lot more than you thought going on in that top of the seventh. After that, Slater would get a single. Ronnie Mauricio would somehow beat out a throw to first as he slid in. Unfortunately, he would fracture his thumb. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. So the Mets had the Mets had bases loaded and 1 out. And in this moment right here, Bichette ground into a force out, and then Soto struck out swinging to end the inning as the Mets would not score anymore. Then, oh baby, it gets much better. As in the top of the 10th, the Mets would have another chance as they'd have runners on first and second, no outs. Because keep in mind, ghost runner rule at second base. Bichette grounded into a double play. They intentionally walked Soto, and then Francisco Alvarez, trying to swing for the fences, flied out to the second baseman, and the Mets would not score in that inning either. So when you talk about infuriating, that was very infuriating. And then the Angels would finally say goodnight to the Mets as Wayne Randazzo gracefully put it on the Angels broadcast, as Oswald Peraza would get the RBI walk-off, or would get the walk-off single to win it for the Angels 4-3 and snap their 7-game losing streak. What was even more painful about that is that the Mets actually had the Angels down to their last 2 strikes with 2 outs, and then that happened. So it is what it is. I was way angrier than I should have been on that night, so I should have toned it down a little bit. It was annoying, though, but so you have to realize that opinions can overcome with emotions sometimes. I'm trying to get better with that. So then we move on to game 3, which was yesterday, and the Mets would win it 5-1 over the Angels and finally win a series for the first time since the Twins series, the first series at Citi Field. And it was desperately needed for the Mets, finally picking up a series win. Clay Holmes, who has been just phenomenal, improving to a 4-2 record, down to a 1.69 ERA. And then for the Angels, Jack Koknovich getting the loss for the Angels. He would go down to 2-1 with a 3.05 ERA. For the pitching, Clay Holmes, as I said, phenomenal. 6 2/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. He's proving to be one of those guys that we can really rely on out of that rotation. Luke Weaver coming out of the pen, he was great. 1 1/3 innings worked. 1 hit, 3 strikeouts. Brooks Raley, 1 inning of work, giving up a hit and 2 strikeouts. As for the hitting, Bichette would go 2 for 5. Juan Soto did not have his greatest game. He would go 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. MJ Melendez, 1 for 2. Austin Slater, pinch hitting for him, would go 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Brett Beatty, 1 for 3 with a run scored, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. Marcus Semien, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Carson Benj, 1 for 2 with 2 runs scored, an RBI, and 2 walks. Mark Vientos, 2 for 4 with 2 runs scored, 4 RBIs, and a strikeout. Tyrone Taylor, 0 for 4. And then Luis Torrens, 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. The Mets would go 2 for 4, runners in scoring position, and leave 8 runners left on base. But it was mostly the case because of one man in particular, and we will get right to him in just a moment. Jorge Soler would start off the scoring with an RBI single, made it 1-0 Angels early in the bottom of the first. Then in the top of the fourth, Mark Vientos with a 2-run home run made it 2-1 New York in the top of the fourth. And then no other scoring until the top of the eighth with an RBI double from Carson Benj, making it 3-1. And then to put icing on the cake, Mark Vientos with another 2-run home run to make it 5-1 New York to cap off a 4 RBI day for Mark Vientos as the Mets would take the 5-1 victory over the Angels. And it was very much needed going into this next series in Colorado. So basically, what I got to say about it, good, great, awesome, fantastic. Now, consistent. Stay consistent. That's all I need. We don't need to win every single game. As much as I would love to win every single game, that would be great. I feel like coming into Colorado, you at least have to try and sweep them. Obviously, you need to win the series because series wins are very much important considering the deep hole that the Mets have put themselves in after the start that they had in April. And hopefully they can do it, as today they head over to Colorado to play the Rockies in the on the West Coast. It's an early afternoon game. For us, it's a early evening game, I would guess. So there's that, I guess. But anyways, of course, today's matchup on May the 4th be with you. It is the Mets, who are 12-22 in fifth place in the NL East, taking on the Colorado Rockies, who are 14-21 and are in fourth place in the NL West. The last time these two teams faced, the Colorado Rockies swept the Mets at home via a Game 1 victory and then a doubleheader sweep on that Sunday afternoon. The starting pitchers for today, Huascar Braziban will take the hill for the Mets. It will likely be a bullpen game for the Mets today, as they have an opener in Braziban. I wonder who's coming out of the pen. Probably might be David Peterson, if I would have to guess. He is 2-0 with a 1.15 ERA, taking on the starter Tamayuki Sagano from the Colorado Rockies. He is 3-1 with a 2.84 ERA, so he's looked pretty decent this season. The starting lineup today for your New York Mets: Juan Soto will be in the leadoff spot for the first time in his career. Very interesting to see what Mendy is doing with this lineup. So he will be in left field. Bo Bichette batting second at shortstop. MJ Melendez batting third in right field. Mark Vientos batting fourth at first base. Brett Beatty batting fifth at third base. Marcus Semien batting sixth at second base. Carson Benj batting seventh in center field. Francisco Alvarez is DHing today in the eighth hole, and Luis Torrens is catching in the 9 hole. One more time, Soto batting leadoff, Bichette batting second, Melendez batting third, Vientos in the cleanup spot, Beatty batting fifth, Semien batting sixth, Benj batting seventh, Alvarez batting eighth, and Torrens batting ninth for the Mets. And now for the Colorado Rockies. Mickey Moniak will be leading off for the Rockies in left field. Tyler Freeman batting second in the DH spot. TJ Rumfield batting third at first base. Hunter Goodman batting fourth is catching in the cleanup spot. Willie Castro batting fifth for the Rockies at second base. Jordan Beck batting sixth in right field. I believe Kyle Karros is correct, batting seventh at third base. Ezekiel Tovar batting eighth, and then Brenton Doyle batting ninth in center field. Tovar, of course, playing at shortstop. One more time, Moniak leadoff, Freeman batting second, Rumfield batting third, Goodman cleaning up, Castro batting fifth, Beck batting sixth, Karros batting seventh, Tovar batting eighth, and Doval is batting ninth for the Colorado Rockies. Today's game is going to be on SMY, so you'll have Gary, Keith, and Ron on the call. I believe Keith is back after his back surgery. He's been having issues with his back lately, so he is back on the broadcast today. I think it's just Gary and Keith. I'm not 100% sure. Again, I don't know the production meeting stuff for SMY, so I don't know who's calling it. All I do know is that Gary Cohen will be on the call. This game starts at 5:40 p.m., so just about maybe an hour and a half away from game time. And the reason for that is because of the chilly temperatures coming around Colorado. I'm hearing it's supposed to be in the low 30s in the evening, and a lot of chance of rain, and also a lot of chance of some snow as well. So this series could be a little bit interesting. I don't know if the full series will be played. We will just have to wait and see. But now, as I said, going into Colorado, this is the spot. If you are struggling as a hitter, Coors Field is the place for you. It is a very, and I mean very, hitters friendly ballpark. You can hit the ball anywhere. Triples, there's a triples alley. There is, of course, the elevation that many baseballs are going to get out of the ballpark. So expect a lot of home runs at Coors Field. And just play consistent baseball. That's all we really need to do. Once you figure out how to, get those home runs, be able to score runners in scoring position, we'll be okay. And hopefully this is a series that the Mets can capitalize on, taking on the Rockies. As for this episode, thank you all for watching this episode of the Bleed Orange and Blue podcast. And as always, let's go Mets. And as for this episode, you can put it in the books.